Very hard to resuscitate because remember the airways are inflamed. Hard to intubate, hard to get enough oxygen through. They cough, a couple coughs leads to arrhythmia, more hypoxemia. This is just a nightmare. You never ever want to have to be part of to resuscitate an asthmatic who has gone into respiratory arrest. So there is no good way to diagnose asthma, especially in kids under 5. You know some of them have it because they've got the family history. Their pattern is such that they wake up at night coughing. They'll even throw up with the coughing. It appears to happen when they're exposed to the triggers, and they respond to albuterol or Zolpidem. So we know they have asthma, but there's a lot of overlap. And people who work in the ERs will tell you that a lot of family docs who don't have experience with small children will diagnose bronchitis. Well, kids don't get bronchitis. So whenever I see that diagnosis, adults get bronchitis, but kids don't get bronchitis. They get bronchiolitis, they get pneumonia, but they don't get bronchitis. So if there are symptoms that someone writes down a diagnosis of bronchitis, it's a red flag to me that they may well have asthma. I think we're going to talk some more about pulmonary function studies. I think everybody should have peak flow in their office. I think spirometry is more expensive, more difficult to interpret. But peak flow is very useful. It can be fun. Kids are competitive. See how high you can get that red thing to go. And brothers and sisters will try to one-up each other. So then you can get them to do their best effort. Some will try so hard to make themselves dizzy, so you have to be careful with what's happening. Our goals are to have no symptoms, so they can take PE, they can play freely, they don't cough at night, and they don't miss school. They don't need their daily inhalers. Kids who are getting a good response to their inhalers or inhaled corticosteroids should not need Zolpidem or albuterol. There's some tricky therapeutic questions here that maybe we'll have time to get into. And of course, no emergency visits, no limitations, and they have normal pulmonary function. And of course, we don't want them to have side effects. The newer inhaled corticosteroids do not have measurable side effects. These are not the Schwarzenegger steroids. The kids say, oh, am I going to get big muscle? When you say steroids, the parents say, oh no, they're going to get addicted to them. These are not addictive drugs. The kids take them every day, not because they're addicted, but because they work. The short-acting medications I see on the schedule, we're going to talk a lot more. They're the albuterol. The long-acting ones are the steroids. I'm not going to get too much into that now. Anybody who has persistent symptoms of asthma needs an inhaled steroid treatment, period. It's just sad how many kids come in who are just using their inhaler, sometimes 4 to 5 times a week for albuterol, and they leave their steroid inhaler sitting at home unused because it doesn't help. And we'll get into reasons why it doesn't help. Spacers are a very controversial area right now. These inhalers are gadgets, and they're tough to use. They're tough to teach. If anybody has any secret on how to teach a 7-year-old how to use an inhaler, or a teenager, or for that matter, a medical assistant, how to use an inhaler. I mean, I've seen just unbelievably poor technique in adults and kids. Out of the first 20 kids that I saw when I got here, maybe 1.5 were using their inhalers right. So when people talk about adding other medicines, wait a minute, are they using the basic ones right? There was one, I think she was about 11 or 12, who was on not only albuterol and steroids, but was also on cromolyn and Singulair. And I said, well, bring your inhaler next time. Show me how you use it. And she put it in her mouth with, didn't take a breath. And by the way, she was getting allergy shots. An office that will be remain unnamed. But going to Weekland for allergy shots. And she wasn't using her inhaler. She just didn't take a breath. How long did it take me to teach? It took about 20 minutes. Not once, but over a couple of visits. And they're the preferred treatment. The long-acting drugs are the ones that are, for example, in the Advair inhalers that contain salmeterol. These are combination products. I don't know. Remember that one teenager that drained her discus in one day? That could have been a mortality. That could have been a mortality. And I have a feeling that's what happens because there is a high, not high, but there are deaths in patients who use the combination product. So the medicine that's in these combination products acts 4 to 5 times as long as albuterol. So instead of 3 or 4 hours, it may be a day. So if you're taking 4 or 5 doses in a day, it's cumulative. So it's not only having an effect on your lung, but it's having an effect on your heart as well. So we can talk about that. I am happy to see that the drug people are not sponsoring this conference because we are bombarded all the time by drug salesmen who are pushing the combination products. And they'll show us this paper and that paper. But all I have to do is see one teenager that's near death from overdose. And say, I got to think about that. And then think that most of the problem with the inhaled steroids is because they're not using it. It's not getting in. We'll say more about compliance. So we need a lot more research in asthma. The diagnostic criteria are too vague. I mean, I diagnose somebody with asthma and they'll go somewhere else. Well, he doesn't have asthma. Well, it's somebody who coughs at night, who can't run 6 laps in a track. Gets better with albuterol. Does that patient not have asthma? Well, maybe they're not wheezing, or maybe they don't have symptoms all the time. And so the diagnosis is the gadgets are complicated. We'll have a chance to work with those. There's no test that shows us how well we're doing. There's no hemoglobin A1C level to say how successful our therapy is. And the genetic tests are at least a decade away. We've recently shared a paper. There's a lot of things that are said about the treatment of asthma that may not have any scientific basis. And we like to move to things that make a difference. There was, we've all heard about dust mites, and we've used the mattress covers. I had a guy come in who wanted to clean my the pipes, the ducts in my heater, and showing me pictures of all these bugs and stuff that come out every time I flip the switch on for the heater. Really ugly looking guy. And they're trying to scare you into getting rid of these things. Well, somebody just reviewed all the evidence. It's published in April. They can't find much evidence that this works. Well, wait a minute. So I want to make the point that it probably does work. And I've had some people tell me that in their particular family it made all the difference in the world.